Welcome to Sunrise Live, the podcast where we have deep conversations with freelance models. And today I have Michaela Hope on the line. Say hello.
Hi.
I'm so glad that you were able to do this today. We've been acquainted through being on these group chats on Instagram, and it's such a great way to meet new people through social media. It's like I'm kind of liking this new wave of socialization in some aspects. It's interesting.
It is such a great resource, honestly.
It is. It does feel like, obviously, I talk shit about social media a lot on this show, but it does bring us together, and that's, I guess, the silver lining to the cloud.
This is true. It definitely does that.
So where are you based?
I'm a DMV based, so I am actually in Maryland, but I travel all over as much as I can.
That's cool.
But closer to Baltimore, honestly.
Right on. And you just travel around in your car?
So my family and I tend to take vacations somewhat often, and they're very supportive of me and my modeling, so I'm always able to take some time away from real life stuff and go to shoots or anything like that. I also in the past year have been traveling by myself a little bit more for events and workshops, which has been great.
Oh, that's cool. So is a lot of your traveling for an event or for one shoot, or do you leave for several days at a time and do a bunch of shoots?
My first big one was in March for WPPI, which is a photography convention out of Vegas. Actually, I think they have several that they do, but the one I went to was in Vegas. That was my first time going, and I was modeling a workshop, a photo walk, and a couple other events like a party and a few 1v1s. So that was my first real travel for modeling.
That's cool. So did you fly or did you drive?
I flew.
Nice. What do you think? Do you like Vegas? Had you been there before?
That was my first time there, and I did like it. I wish I got to see a little bit more of Vegas, but I worked a lot, and overall, it was still a really good experience, and I'm going back in September to work more, so we'll see.
Oh, cool. Is there another event happening?
I'll be modeling a workshop and hopefully scheduling a few more 1v1s.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, I'll be in Utah, not that far away from you.
Ooh.
I'm always
maybe we should get together.
I'm always trying to get people to come to South Utah. It's hard to get shoots out here because you have to really advertise because people gotta fly and get a hotel and stuff. But anyway, the locations are beautiful, and that's just been my latest obsession.
It's definitely on my bucket list. I would really like to go. The not the dry lake beds. What are they? The salt flats.
Mm-hmm.
They're beautiful. I really want to shoot on them.
Oh yeah, and there's definitely a few close to Las Vegas too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'll send you a link afterwards, but there's directly south of Las Vegas, there's a dry lake bed called Jean Roach dry lake bed, and I think most vehicles can make it on there. You don't even need 4-wheel drive from what I recall.
Oh, I'll definitely have to look into that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great time.
Yeah. So for our listeners and for me, because I don't know the answer to this either, can you tell us how you first got into modeling?
So, about 6 years ago, I had my first child. I was pretty young, and obviously with having a child, your body changes a whole lot. And I went in about 2 years postpartum and had my first boudoir session.
Ooh.
And I really loved the way it made me feel. I felt so confident. Mind you, I'm a photographer, so I have background in photography anyway.
Oh.
But yeah, I had my first boudoir shoot, felt super confident, and really just like loved being in front of the camera and felt very comfortable and very natural at it. So I had a few more shoots after that. I participated in a few model calls for a couple other photographers. And eventually I was just like, maybe I should just try this modeling thing. And I went back and forth with myself a couple times, probably over the course of 6 months. And then I was just like, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And I put myself out there and it just kind of all worked out.
That's so cool. So did you have any hesitance at first about having like, photos of yourself online like that?
Oh yeah, especially because I am a family and newborn photographer. At first I was limiting what I would shoot and, which I still do, but what I was putting on the internet and sharing online because I was worried about it falling back on me in my business and my reputation. And eventually I was like, if they don't support me or my business because I decide to model something that I enjoy, something that I'm good at, then they aren't my clients, they aren't my people.
Right.
And that really lifted a big weight off my shoulders and allowed me to like just continue on further in it.
Wow. That's very interesting. I know there's a lot of photographers that listen to this podcast, and I know that a lot of people that do photography have the same struggle where they're like, oh, I want to shoot like lingerie or artistic nudes, but they want to separate that from their photography and they try to keep it like a secret from their clients because they're worried about the same thing, about being judged or not getting bookings because of judgmental clients.
I mean, they're definitely out there and it's going to happen. So it's whether or not you decide to entertain it, I feel.
I see. Have you ever had a potential client find your modeling photos before booking and say something?
No, but I have had a client who brought it up at her booking for her daughter's cake smash. And she's
Oh,
like, I support you. Like, you're doing great. And I was like, well, these are the people that I need in my life.
that's good. I mean, that's positive, so that's good.
Yeah. And I'm sure that, I mean, I have a lot of clients on my like Facebook page who I've befriended over the years and they know that I model and they've never said anything and they've never stopped working with me because honestly, they're booking me for my craft. They're not booking me because of my modeling.
That's great. And that's very interesting. I guess there different like fields of like jobs have, I guess, different dynamics. Because I interviewed another model who was she was like a sports trainer for teenagers and she got fired because they found out that she had like lingerie photos on Instagram and she started an OnlyFans and stuff. And so I guess it really depends on who it is that you're working with. I guess getting fired from a job is different than being a freelancer doing your own photography.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, with my other jobs that I have, I've been very upfront with it from the start. When they wanted to hire me, I'm like, well, I do this, and nobody's had a problem with it.
That's
So,
great. That's
yeah,
great.
I'm hoping that it's becoming more accepted.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and I struggle myself to gauge how big of a deal it is to the outside world. Like, in my life also, like, not all of my family, I would say, is supportive. There's a few family members that I have that are kind of like weird about my nude modeling, but everybody knows what I do, and, my dad is no longer trying to stop me, so,
Yeah, I have similar family members. Don't worry.
yeah, so everybody in my life knows what I do, and I've been doing it for a very long time. And there's rarely situations where I'm like, oh, I have to, clean up my like the potential that somebody's gonna find out. Like I gotta take the prints off of my wall because somebody in particular is coming over. I don't have to run into that very often, but I do still bump into it sometimes. And I also wonder, like, are people that come into my life that might be hiring me for something that's not nude modeling, are they going to be weird or freaked out about the nudity thing? Because I know that there's people out there that are super freaked out about it. And I just don't want to, rub someone the wrong way or make them feel like they can't trust me because there's like erotic images of me on the internet, you know?
Yeah, but I also think that there is a certain respect that comes with it from our perspective. It's not like you're going to sit there and you're going to like tell them like, yeah, I do this, I do this. It's not like something that comes up in conversation usually,
Yeah.
that's your personal life. I mean, it's a big part of your life, but it's not everything about you.
Life, it almost kind of is, actually.
Yeah.
I do struggle to separate like my personal life from my modeling life. And I have kind of binded them. Like I used to have an alias, but I use my real name now because I got sick of my alias.
That's another thing that I was really hesitant about for a while. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use my real name
Yeah.
because of that.
So,
But eventually I just decided to
okay. Yeah.
use my real name.
Cool. That's awesome. So Michaela is your real name.
Yeah.
That's rad. I mean, I think that's great. I think that, like, the more upfront you are with, like, who you are and what you're doing and what you love, I think that attracts, like, more like-minded type of people into your life.
I could agree with that.
Yeah. So you had your child 6 years ago, and then postpartum 2 years, you had that first boudoir shoot. So would you say you've been modeling about 4 years?
I would say that I officially started modeling. When did I start? Um, so I made my account, like my Instagram portfolio, is like pretty much where I started putting myself out there
Mm-hmm.
in September 2022. So I'm
Oh,
almost 2 years in now
wow.
with that.
That's
I
amazing.
wouldn't have considered that my modeling, although you will find some of those on my portfolio way, way back.
Wow.
Um, but I built it up rather quickly with self-portraits and like other things that I have done.
That's great. Oh, since you're already a photographer, like, yeah, that totally makes sense. That's so cool. And so within this period of
Yeah.
time, is modeling now like your main source of income, or do you also have another job, I guess, besides your photography?
Photography is definitely my main income. I do photography full time. I'm opening my own studio as we speak, so
Oh,
it's really great.
congrats. That's amazing.
uh, Modeling definitely contributes a big portion of my income. I would say I do that part time if you're considering just shooting, and then having to maintain everything is a whole other job in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I'm an aerial instructor at 2 gyms,
Oh,
so
that's cool.
that is a little bit of extra income there too.
That's nice. So you're like a full-time creative person.
I think so. I like to think of myself that way.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. I think a lot of people want to be, diversified in their creative life or to move into at least a side hustle that's creative, but it sounds like your whole life is mostly like creative activities.
I'm very, very grateful for being able to pretty much mold my life into what I want it to be in that way.
That's amazing and that's very inspiring.
Thank you. It definitely wasn't like a plan. It just kind of all worked out.
That's so cool. So you had, with that first shoot that you did that kind of inspired you to model, had you like photographed boudoir clients before that? Or was this your first boudoir experience?
That was definitely my first boudoir experience. And then I did shoot boudoir a little bit after that, just to kind of get an idea of it. I was still pretty new at photography back then. So I was kind of just getting a feel for everything and like what I wanted to do. And I definitely leaned more towards motherhood
Hmm.
photography, which is still where I feel like I thrive.
That's awesome. Cool. And so it's been a little bit over 2 years since you officially started, like, modeling for hire. What would you say?
Um, Less than 2 years now.
Less than 2 years.
It'll be 2 years in September
Oh, okay. Sorry, I did the mental
or
math wrong.
July. It's okay.
No worries.
I don't even know what day it is.
I barely know what day it is either, honestly. I think that's a benefit of being a freelancer sometimes. What would you say you've learned the most? Like, what skills do you think that doing the freelance modeling has given you, or like what has it added to your life?
That's a good question. I feel like it's definitely allowed me to appreciate other photography and other photography skills in different forms of artwork and photography. I've learned a lot, like stuff I would like never even considered, whether it's editing or lighting or genres that I didn't know really were a thing. I don't know. I think just connecting in this creative community from a different perspective has really helped me grow as a photographer and then also as a model.
That's cool. So, and this is probably because you are being exposed to other photographers when you're modeling, not just your own photography. And does that give you like ideas for like things to try with lighting and stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've learned a lot with lighting and different brands and how different brands work with lighting and how to use gels and so much more. Different backdrops, a whole bunch of different companies. And then even just like learned how to manipulate natural light has been a big deal for me. I said I also feel like it's helped me appreciate other photographers more because when I first started, when I felt like I had to be in competition with other photographers, because that's kind of like how I was brought up. That's how I learned. And now I'm like, we're all just doing what we want to do, and no work is going to be exactly the same. So it's better to support each other.
That's great.
Same thing with modeling.
Yeah. The vibe that I get with other models that do what we do in general has mostly been that we are supportive of each other. I don't often like feel like another model's like trying to rub me the wrong way or trying to cut me down. Like it does seem like a very supportive community if you are like genuinely like trying at it.
Oh, I agree. I've met so many amazing models and I mean just people, you know. There's other people in this community and everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to make sure that you're safe and it's great.
Yeah. And that's definitely like within the last 10 years or so, that's definitely been a stronger and stronger element in like the freelance modeling world. Like since Facebook groups became more of a popular thing and models started like making private chat groups where we would talk with each other. For me, that was like when my career started to like improve a lot was when I got invited to these like private models only chat rooms. And then I was like finally able to get some like actual good advice and stuff because before that didn't exist. I started modeling in like 2006. So
Oh my
like
god.
I know and it was only I started off of MySpace and Craigslist. Um
Oh wow.
And then I finally made a Model Mayhem when I was like, I think almost 20. And I still use it. Did you ever end up making a Model Mayhem?
I did make a model mayhem and I'm considering getting back on it, but I just ended up deleting it because for some reason, somehow, my phone number, or like they were getting my phone number off of it, and I was getting text messages from random people.
What?
And like, not even that. So the thing is, Model Mayhem, I had a modeling account, but I was getting like photography inquiries off of it, which I'm pretty sure were just scams. I
Oh,
didn't have my phone number anywhere, and I'm like, how do you know that I'm a photographer? And how did you get my number off Model Mayhem?
that's weird. That's
It
really,
was very odd. I just decided, like, I was like, I don't want to deal with this right now. So I
yeah,
deleted or deactivated my account, but
yeah.
yeah.
It used to be great. Like, it is, it is a good way to check references on people because, you can see their reviews on their front page and you can easily, like, find people and check their references, like, through their portfolio and stuff. But just not very many people use it anymore. So it's kind of, I wouldn't say that you have to restart it, but like it's a nice way to have your portfolio up, especially if you don't have like a website.
Yeah, I might have to. I literally just posted the other day, I was like, I might have to reintroduce it. Well, mostly because I hope to travel more, and I feel like it's a way to get in contact with people
Yeah.
traveling too.
Yeah, it helps. It does help. I think that Instagram for me right now is probably the best way to find work now.
That's so far my main source of bookings is Instagram and my main portfolio. But I feel like it's sketchy because you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like I'm always scared I'm gonna lose my account.
Oh my gosh, tell me about it. I have lost my account many times. Yeah, it sucks. Um, it sucks. But yeah, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, it's like a love-hate relationship with Instagram always.
Oh yeah, I get it. I get those. Your content can't be recommended to non-followers all the
Mm,
time.
yeah, I'm so shadow
It's a
banned.
lot.
I'm just over it right now. I'll just post. I think that I'm just gonna just start posting whatever I want, whether it's a quote or like a landscape photo or a photo of myself. Like I don't care about the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't care about me either. So
It's constantly changing. I
mm,
just stay on.
yeah, yeah. So I have a question. Since you started with doing photography professionally before doing modeling professionally, have you had experiences where you're working with a photographer who might need like some kind of photography or lighting advice? And how do you handle those situations?
Yes, it happens all the time. Not like all the time, but I feel like most of the time when I am going into a shoot, the photographer is aware that I am a photographer, or
Cool.
I bring it up pretty early on. So I've shown up before, and they're like, "I'm kind of nervous because I've seen your work, and you're actually good." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, thanks." I guess that's a compliment.
Uh-huh.
Um, but there's a one particular one that stands out that I worked with a photographer. It was like one of my first paid gigs. And he was complaining about the strobe having a line at the bottom, or like the camera like having a dark line on the bottom of the screen. And I'm like, can I see your settings? Like, what are your settings at? Because it was an older strobe. And he was like, it's like 1 in 400, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, you need to lower it down to 1 in 200 at least. Your shutter's too fast for it. And he like got frustrated that I knew something and shut me down. And he was like, we're just going to go to the window and shoot. I was like, okay.
Oh, that's awkward.
Yeah. I typically don't, I mean, I will make little adjustments. I'm like, obviously I know where the light's supposed to be pointed, so I will say something like that, but I tend to not, like, they have a system. They're going to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
I might, like, make suggestions or recommendations here and there, but if they're happy with what they're getting, that's fine.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And I have run into similar awkward situations, and I've also just decided I'm only going to give feedback if they're asking for feedback.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, people can get offended if you, like, know how to fix their problem, which is, I swear to God, that has to be like a man-woman dynamic. Like, oh, the woman knows more than I do about what I'm doing, you know, like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like it's that.
Yeah. Yep. Or it's people who think like, oh, I've been doing photography for this long, and I'm like, well, technology's changed, you know.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Things are changing.
Yeah. Like, if I go to somebody's Model Mayhem page and the first line in their bio is professional photographer with 40 plus years of experience, I already know what I'm getting into. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's really funny how it works.
So speaking of crazy and funny things, I have this part of my podcast that I like to call the photo shoot fail of the week. And it's an opportunity for you to tell a story of something funny or crazy or fucked up that's happened to you while modeling. It could be the situation surrounding a photo shoot was crazy, or maybe the photographer was crazy, but what's one of your crazy stories?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I would probably say the craziest story that I have, luckily it's nothing too crazy, but it's one of the more memorable ones, was in Vegas. I was modeling a workshop for a friend of mine, and mind you, like, this week in March in Vegas was like record-breaking winds.
Oh.
It was crazy. And this was a desert boudoir workshop. And we originally were supposed to go about 45 minutes away to another location. But because of how bad the wind was, we decided that we weren't going to drive so far just to not be able to do anything. So we decided to move it in closer, like on the outskirts of the city, which was fine. We drove around, we were looking for a location. The sun's starting to go down because we wanted golden hour, which you should know, like in the desert, it gets so much colder, and it was already cold, and it's windy. So me and my co-model are dressed in lingerie, trying to model this workshop, and wind's blowing us around, and sand's hitting us, and it's just crazy. Everybody's shivering, everybody's cold, photographers and everyone. But looking at the photos, you would never be able to tell.
Really? Wow.
I mean, maybe in some of them, but it ended up working out. But I think just because of how the conditions were, it's one of the more memorable, more crazy experiences that I've had as a model.
That's intense. Yeah, the wind can really, like, make things hard.
Yes. And I think it was just really, really cold too, which was rough.
The worst, yeah. I try to build resilience to the cold, but still, every time I am cold, I'm just like, I hate being cold.
It took so long for us to get warmed up, but it was worth it. And I try to do like, I have one of those mindsets, like anything for the shot within reason. That was almost not within reason, but it worked out.
You were getting hit with sand too?
Yeah, because of how it was like 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts.
Oh my God.
It was bad. It was bad.
So, like, I've been modeling, like, in super windy, sandy areas, and that hurts. It feels like you're, like, getting a sandpaper bath.
And yeah, you're getting pelted with sand.
Yeah. Ouch. Well, I'm glad that you were able to make it through that and that the photos worked out. Did they have, like, any reflectors or, like umbrellas or anything like that they had to control too?
No, we just had a single, or well, we had a couple, but we only used a single continuous light with a beauty dish.
Okay, nice. So that's
So
not that
didn't
hard to control.
we didn't even put it on a tripod. I think we had people taking turns holding it
Oh,
to hit where they wanted it to hit, just because they didn't want it to blow over.
dang, that's crazy. I mean, I wonder if they could have like a backup location for future events because that just sounds intense.
Yeah, I do know that there were a few people who were also hosting similar workshops that week that decided to move it indoors,
Yeah.
but our general consensus between models and the person running the workshop, we were like, let's just try it. Let's just see how it goes.
Yeah, Vegas can be unpredictable. Like when I think of Vegas, I just think of like hot desert. But like stuff like that, like the wind or I guess the heat or the sand. I was in Vegas on my way to the dry lake bed for a shoot once, and we all got notifications on our phone that there was like a dust storm warning, and it was like, go back inside, there's a dust storm coming. And I was like, well, it says it should end at 4 and the shoot starts at 4, so let's just go to the dry lake bed. So I get there, and I think that the epicenter of the storm was like in the dry lake bed. It was so dusty that we couldn't see out the windshield, and dust and sand was getting into the cabin of my vehicle, and we just had to park and like just stay there for like 40 minutes before we could like even get out of there. And yeah, that shoot did not happen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
yeah, it can be crazy. And the wind in Las Vegas can be, I mean, it gets windy out here in South Utah too. I heard they recently canceled some major concerts in Las Vegas because of the wind.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was so windy. I'm not as familiar with like that part of the United States, honestly, but I've been to Arizona before and it was not like that.
It can be.
It wasn't when I was there.
Yeah, no, that's good. Like, where I'm staying in Utah, I think maybe like a couple days out of the month, it seems, there'll be like some random crazy windstorm where you just want to stay inside. And I'm just crossing my fingers that it doesn't happen on a day that I have a shoot.
Wow. Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, cool. So with your modeling, do you have goals for your future?
Right now, my biggest goal is to travel more and more make connections, I think.
Nice. Do you have places you want to
Yeah,
travel to?
just anywhere I really haven't been to, honestly. It would be really cool to get to travel internationally for it. Sometimes I get really bad imposter syndrome and I'm like, I'm not good enough for that. But I am getting closer to being able to travel more. So
Cool.
we're getting somewhere.
That's awesome. What would it take for you to be able to go on more trips like that?
Maybe just an increase in income and people wanting to book more paid gigs. I feel like people always just want me to work for free,
Yeah.
which I don't want to do that. It's a lot of work for free. And then, my son's still really young and it's hard sometimes leaving him for so many days at a time. So maybe the option to have more trips as a family where I can break away for a little bit of time to work.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, I think so.
That's awesome. Are there any genres of modeling that you want to dive more into?
Uh, I really like fine art in general. I think that's probably my favorite. And then I really love boudoir. Really enjoy boudoir. So maybe just more of those two types of things, those two types of genres.
Something that I learned earlier in my modeling was that, like, I went through this phase where I was just taking all the paid shoots that were offered to me, and a lot of them were like, cheesy, like GWC type glamour, like schoolgirl skirt,
Oh yeah.
like bending over and like pigtails and stuff like that wasn't really me. And over time, like my portfolio was just full of that, and it made it so that a lot of photographers that I wanted to work with didn't want to work with me because they were like, oh, well, you don't do the kind of work that I want to do, so why would I hire you? And so I struggled, and I was like, well, I'm going to show you. And I like just tried to, fix my portfolio so that it represented stuff that I wanted to do more. So I don't know if that's just a piece of advice for down the road, but it sounds like you were already doing a lot of the types of modeling that you're inspired by.
Yeah, I try. I try to keep it more focused. I get inquiries for stuff like that, and honestly, for myself, it's not me. I don't want to do schoolgirl cutesy stuff. It's not my thing. And I just prefer more of the artistic side of things, I believe.
Yeah, I totally get that sense when I'm looking at your photos too, is that it is mostly what looks like good, high quality work.
I'm very particular about what I post on my page, so thank you.
You're welcome. I guess I didn't go to the tagged photos, but I don't even like regulate what's in my tagged photos unless it's really bad.
Oh, I don't think I have that. I've done that either, honestly. You just made me want to look.
Yeah, if you go on Instagram, you can click on that icon on the right, like above all of your photos, and you can see who's tagged you. And I mostly just check to see if there's any like spam accounts that are tagging me with like their scams or promotions or whatever. But every once in a while, there's a photo that I'm just like, nobody should see this.
You don't want it on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that. Yeah, I feel like most of the stuff that I'm seeing is pretty consistent with how I want to represent myself.
That's good. That means that you're mostly curating who you're working with, which is really good.
Yay.
So I would
There
not
might be a few Easter eggs.
Oh, a few Easter eggs. I would not recommend for anybody trying to get into freelance modeling to just say yes to everybody, because I kind of
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I kind of came in with this expectation from the start, and luckily I was like put in contact with professionals and working with professionals to help kind of gauge where I wanted or how I wanted to see myself and on my page.
That's cool. So for you, what are some red flags when somebody contacts you and says that they want to shoot? Like, what are some things that somebody might say, or maybe some things that they have on their profile that make you unsure about wanting to move forward with it?
I feel like I'm very cautious because you just never know. So red flags are not tagging models, not having anything in their tags, um, obviously not having anything posted.
Yeah.
No mutuals. They're almost always mutuals, especially when you book mostly in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
And then how they're wording stuff and what they want. Have you ever gotten an inquiry and they're like, "Can I take pictures of you with my phone?" And I'm like, no.
Yeah, that has happened to me. The one time that I can remember that it happened, like the photographer was coming to my hotel room to shoot, and he had already arrived at the hotel and he was in the lobby on his way to the room. So it was like 5 minutes before the shoot, and he just texted me and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be shooting with my iPhone. Is that okay?" And so I was like, I guess so, because you're already here. Like, you didn't really give me an option, and like, I'm not totally against it, but I feel like everybody's on a budget, right? Like, not everybody can afford like lots of nice gear, and I understand that. But like, are the photos just for like personal use, or are these people that are using their phones for photography, like, are they actually trying to take good photos? And that, I guess that's the thing, is that if these are just like going to be really crappy photos, which it's an iPhone shoot, they're probably going to be crappy. Like,
It's just like shooting in auto mode.
yeah. Coming from a photographer, yeah, that means a lot. I know there's a lot of photographers that do shoot on auto.
Yes, there are. It's just, I feel like it's less reliable. There's nothing really wrong with it.
Yeah.
But other than those little things for red flags, I've had, I can't think of any, like much more off the top of my head, but I will almost always use the resources of like these model chats or something to like be like, hey, should I work with this person? Are they safe to work with? Has anybody worked with that? And if there are red flags, somebody else is usually able to help me identify that.
That's awesome. It's so great to hear, like, that you are able to get this support within, like, the first 2 years of doing modeling. About how far into your career did you start, into your modeling career, did you start getting connected in these chats with other models?
I think I joined into my first my first like model chat. Somebody added me. It had to have been like within the first like few months.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely a good resource.
It is a great
And then
resource.
there's like a safety group that I was added into pretty early on. So seeing that and being able to utilize that was great.
That's really good. And I've been in and out of these various private groups for many years. And one thing that I find is a challenge that it's kind of hard to navigate is that when you're in these private groups, like, all the models that are in the group have to trust each other with this information, because if a model says something bad happened with a certain photographer, the last thing that you want is for, like, another person that's in this private chat to screenshot what you said and text it to that photographer, because I've been in groups where that's happened, where somebody...
I have too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so because of that, it's harder to approve a newer model who doesn't have a lot of history of modeling. So it seems like oftentimes I feel like a lot of models that really need this safety information, that should be utilizing information that's in these safety groups, like, it feels like they have to, work through a bunch of predators and cut their teeth and get into modeling the hard way before they're invited to one of these groups. Did you feel like that at all before you got invited?
I was warned about some like of the more major predators in my area pretty early on, and it just ended up blocking these predators. So I just didn't have to worry about them. But I've seen it happen in group chats, and I've seen them crumble and burn because somebody took it to real life and they took something out of the chat, and that it's just ethnically wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, it becomes like a liability.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I haven't given anybody a reason to not trust me. So
Yeah.
I didn't have any of that issue
That's
going
good.
into it, but
That's
I agree. I think it's worth believing
Yeah.
people.
I think so too. And I wasn't trying to
Better safe than
indicate,
sorry.
I wasn't trying to indicate that there would be a reason not to trust you beyond that if you were newer in the scene.
No, I get it. I was just like, I don't think I gave anybody a reason not to trust me, so they
Yeah.
added me. I think I got like messaged one time by the group owner, maybe a couple times, or a couple of these chat owners, and they're like, "Do you agree to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Not gonna screw you guys over."
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. And
I hear it all the time.
I totally have been like, I had somebody screenshot something that I said in a Facebook group about a super predatory photographer from Seattle, and somebody, like a makeup artist in that group, screenshotted what I said and texted it to the photographer, and the photographer texted me and was like, Christy, what the fuck are you saying about me on the internet? And I was like, oh my god, I wasn't supposed to get back to you. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, that's so messed up.
Yeah, it just creates a lot of drama and tension for the people that are being vulnerable by sharing their experiences, because the last thing you want is like a defamation suit, you know? So it,
Yeah, and then you're just trying to make a safer place for these models, and they're just
exactly.
gonna do that. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Unfortunately, there's people out there that even if you had a first-hand experience with somebody like assaulting you or something, and you post about it, somebody out there's, if it's posted publicly, they're not going to believe you, and they're going to be on the predator side, and so it's a recipe for disaster. But anyway, thanks for answering my question. I think that it's so important for models who've been doing it for a long time to reach out to newer models. I think that because when you first start modeling, when you first start posting photos of yourself, that's when you're the most vulnerable to predatory photographers. And I feel like that's the time that you need the support the most, is when you first start.
I agree with you. I feel like most of my encounters, like potential encounters when I first started, or when I first started, because I'm new, I am more naive, I haven't had my foot in the industry.
Yeah, right on. Well, I'm really happy that you are like part of the community and that you found the groups, or they found you. And I think it's refreshing to see it happens in real time, like in activity today, that people are reaching out, and that things are improving in general in the modeling community.
I agree with you. It's important because you just never know.
Yeah. I have another question that I want to ask that I also ask everybody on the show.
Okay.
I call it the rising phoenix era of your life. Can you describe a situation, and it could be related to your modeling or not, just any part of your life that you want to share, where you were faced with some kind of a challenge that you had to overcome?
Oh my gosh, this is crazy. I feel like I just had my biggest like breakthrough
Hmm.
just over a year ago, where it was like within my modeling and also like within my photography, but I was dealing with a very like toxic friendship that, like, every time I tried to set boundaries, I was the bad guy. It was very narcissistic, but this was also affecting like my photography and my other aspects of life. And finally, I just had to make a decision to cut this person off completely, even though it gave backlash. Like they felt to be like the victim. But I feel like within like me being able to let go has let me grow so much, as a model, as a photographer, as a person in general, and has made me a lot more comfortable in establishing my boundaries, which has helped a lot with modeling and running a business, and not being so like such a people pleaser and doing things more on my terms and doing what I want to do.
Wow, that's amazing. It's very interesting how exiting a toxic dynamic like that can affect all of the other areas of your life positively.
It opened my eyes a lot because like usually you don't there's points where you won't see the toxicity until it's right in front of you and it's really affecting you. And then not having it is such a weight off your shoulders, and it's really helped me grow.
Wow. Oh, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. It was tough.
Yeah.
It was really tough.
Yeah. Friend breakups are tough. I've done not very many of them in my life, but at least a couple. And it's different than like a relationship breakup. But yeah, that can be hard.
I think that's like the first time I really had to cut somebody off because they were so toxic. And maybe that's why it was so enlightening and helped me so much with myself, because was just I felt like I was defeated all the time, you know?
That's harsh. Yeah. And now you have the confidence because that person's influence is no longer in your airspace.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
And that was within the last year, you said?
Yeah, it was, well, a little over a year now, but I've seen significant changes in myself and my business and my like ability to be who I want to be and set boundaries that are best for me and my family, you know?
Yeah, that's great. That is a good rising phoenix era. And I think it's important to, have boundaries. And with modeling also, like, I learned about boundaries through modeling because my upbringing didn't, like, really teach good boundaries. I was raised religious, and the whole shtick was, like, women are to serve, and
Yep.
don't really have the
I get
right
it.
to stick up for ourselves or to say no or whatever. That's just, I guess that was my training in my upbringing. And so with modeling, I was also a people pleaser, and it can be hard especially when a photographer's paying you and you want to get paid at the end of the shoot. If they didn't pay you at the beginning of the shoot, there's this power dynamic where you're like, you want to make them happy. And if they ask you to do something that you're not comfortable with, for me, I'm worried about triggering them to get angry or not getting paid at the end of the shoot.
I agree. I've definitely dealt with that a lot more before. But it's been a lot easier since I cut that person off and was able to like identify that in myself.
Yeah. So cutting somebody off is like, that's probably one of the biggest types of boundaries that you can create for yourself, because it's not just, you're not allowed to interact with me in this type of way. It's you are not going to interact with me at all again. I'm cutting you off. And that is, that's an extreme boundary, but it can be really important to be able to do something like that so that in your future you don't have to struggle to set boundaries. So if you do a really hard one, then the smaller ones are easier, I guess.
I guess you could say that. Wow. Yeah, you're right. It definitely set the bar high.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like a life-changing moment. But
I would say so. It definitely was for me.
there's a quote out there that I always run back into, and it says, you are a mixture of the 5 closest people that you hang out with. And so if you're hanging out with somebody who is being toxic or abusive in any kind of way, that's like 1/5 of, or at least 1/5, depending on how often you're, getting together or associating with each other. So yeah, like I do try to think about that when I'm getting into meeting new people, kind of gauging, like, is this person going to lift me up or tear me down?
Wow, I never heard that before, but it definitely puts a lot into perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's another thing that I learned the hard way growing up. But, when I was younger, I made bad decisions with who my friends were and stuff. So live and learn.
Exactly. Sometimes those are the best lessons, but the hardest.
Yeah. That's great. So your future modeling, you desire more travels, and you mentioned that you're thinking about going to different countries. Do you have particular countries in mind that you want to travel to?
I really want to go to Iceland right now. I think that's probably one of my biggest goals, and then I still want to, I want to go to Europe really bad.
Cool.
Although I have no connections in either of those countries, so these are just little goals that hopefully work out.
That's awesome. I actually have not been to Iceland either, and the photos that I've seen are stunning, and I would also like to go there someday.
They're beautiful. I would love to.
I almost feel like in order to get work out there, you almost have to set up some kind of a workshop, because I don't think that there's a lot of photographers that live in Iceland.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
I don't know, honestly, but I've heard of workshops potentially being there, and that's what sparked it for me. I was like, oh, I would love to go to a workshop or model a workshop there.
Have you ever thought of going to Australia?
I think about it sometimes, and then I think about the bugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I'm opposed, but I'd probably try it once or twice, depending on if I liked it.
I mention it because there are a lot of photographers there that pay comparable rates to what's paid in the United States.
Oh wow. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I'm still learning a lot, but that's really good knowledge.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, and for Europe, I have traveled there, but I haven't I've done a couple of shoots here and there when I was already on vacation, doing other stuff, but I haven't ever attempted to do a tour through Europe, mostly because from what I hear, the going rates for models are somewhat lower, noticeably lower than what they are in the United States. And so
disappointing.
Yeah, so I think that if I ever go there, it'll mostly be for sightseeing and vacation, and then maybe get a few bookings here and there. But since it costs so much to fly overseas, I don't know if I would actually try to do a formal tour.
Yeah, that's another thing is I've never actually done a tour, so maybe that would be a good first step with a goal.
Yeah.
Is to tour. But I'm still learning, and I'm still learning how to put myself out there to photographers all over the country to get these bookings.
With your photography, do you ever get photography bookings when you're traveling, or is it mostly closer to your home region?
Most of my clients are DMV based, but when I have traveled, I have had bookings here and there. Only if I post. Facebook's probably my biggest resources for advertising. As a photographer, and I'll go on groups and I'll be like, I'm traveling to this area, let me know if you'd like to schedule a photo shoot. And so mostly beach towns or stuff like that.
Cool.
And I've tried similar stuff with modeling, looking on Facebook and putting myself out there. And I've had a few, but
yeah. Facebook can be hard for getting shoots. I have gotten shoots through Facebook, but it seems like a little bit not quite as successful as Instagram for me.
I agree with you.
Cool. Well, Michaela, it's been really great getting to know you over the phone, doing this podcast episode. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up before we say goodbye?
Oh, I don't think so. I think that you've asked me a lot. And
I have.
I feel like we've been talking for so long. But it was so nice to be on this podcast, and it was really nice to get to know you and talk to you, and hopefully we can talk more sometime.
Yeah, hit me up if you're ever gonna go to Utah, because I can show you some cool stuff out here.
I'm definitely gonna plan it.